I thought it was gonna go automatically. Okay, I think we're live.
Hey guys, this is Susan with Pack Leader Dog Training, and I'm here with Rachel Kohler Dog Training. And this is actually our first live via different states, right?
Yes, and since it's our first live, I'm trying to make sure that we are live. So I'm checking on my phone because this is a new system.
It does say live on my computer.
I just saw on Facebook. So we are live, so hey guys. I don't know if it tells us if anyone jumps on or not. I don't know if we have any way to know that, but thanks for joining us for our first live broadcast.
This is Q&A 20. So we thought we'd do something special. We just happened to align with our 20th Q&A, so I think the timing's perfect. And if it goes over well, we may continue to do lives every Tuesday at about 6 o'clock. So let us know what you think, and feel free to comment any questions that you guys have. We do already have some questions to go over, but if you guys have any, or if you think of any along the way, feel free to just comment them in the comment section, and then we'll go over them.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. It's crazy to think back that this is Q&A 20. Like just thinking back, because like this is like a new set of nerves doing it live for us. So thinking back to our first one, and how, or at least nervous I was to pre-record our first Q&A back in Rhode Island.
Oh my gosh, doesn't that seem so silly now to be nervous about pre-recording?
Right, because it's pre-recorded, so it's fine, and now we're live. So that's kind of crazy, but super excited for it, and I really hope that anyone watching hops in and asks any questions, because we love answering people's questions.
Yeah. So do you want to start us off? Do you have do you want to hit my question first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on gentle leaders? And if a dog has been trained on a gentle leader, how would you go about training them on proper leash etiquette, or would there be any point on making the transition?
Hold on, clarify for a second. What was that last part? It says if they're trained on.
It says if your dog has been trained on the gentle leader, how would you go about training them on proper leash etiquette?
So is that like training them without the gentle leader? Is that what that's saying?
Yeah, would you train with the gentle leader, or would you transition them to a prong?
So I personally am not a fan of gentle leaders, like the head halters, right?
Yeah.
So I don't love those just because they are advertised as an easy fix. So owners will get them and plop them on a dog and think it's just gonna fix their dogs, like leash pulling and things like that. But the problem I've found is a lot of dogs are just gonna like pull through that anyways. And then it can cause like neck damage, and it's just super uncomfortable for the dog, and they're scratching at it, and all that stuff. But that being said, this question specifically says if my dog is already trained on it. So if you've conditioned your dog to wearing a head halter, if you have taught them pressure on, pressure off with a head halter, if that's the tool that is working for you, then I can put like my like opinions on the side and say if that is working for you and it's working for your dog and they're not having any problems with it, then there is, I don't guess, a need to transition them onto something else unless you're planning on doing other obedience stuff with them. So while that head halter is great for your walks, if you've trained your dog for it, if you're going to want to continue there, okay, you're laughing, so I'm hoping that's what you were going to say too.
I'm laughing because of that.
Oh, yes, he's my favorite. But yeah, if you're wanting to do training other than that, while I think some trainers do train other commands with the head halter as well, I would just transition to the prong, because prong collar, pressure on, pressure off for other obedience commands will probably be a little bit easier than doing all that with the head halter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if you're just asking is a head halter okay, yeah, nothing wrong with a head halter if it works for you. Like, do what works for you. If it's working, why mess with it? But if you give your dog to me to train, I am for sure going to transition to a prong collar because that's what I'm comfortable with. And I'm starting at ground zero with your dog anyway. So I'm just going to use a tool that I'm comfortable with. And we don't use it just for walking, which the gentle leader is used for. I'm going to use a prong collar to also teach down and place and recall and all that. So I would just transition to the prong.
Right. So a pause on our head halter conversation. We do have a couple of questions I want to touch on.
Yeah.
So our first question is from Tracy. Let's see, I think it's going to let me show it on the screen.
Beautiful.
So it says our 7-month-old lab, he does well on correction collar. When he is off collar, he comes when he wants to. How do you get him to come when off the collar? Same in house with training collar. As soon as it comes off, he doesn't listen as well. He knows the difference.
Yeah, so unfortunately, dogs can become collar wise if you like when you take it off, they just know, because if you recall them, they know there's no way for you to follow through, right? So I don't know. You're talking about an e-collar, I assume,
Mhm.
and I don't know what e-collar you're using. But I would recommend, your puppy's fairly young, so I would recommend just having the e-collar on at all times. Make sure you rotate it every 4 to 6 hours so it doesn't get pressure sores. But that way, the e-collar is not just he's becoming wise to you putting the tool on, right? So as of right now, I would just make it a fact of life. The e-collar is on all the time. Rotate it, prong and e-collar. Okay. So yeah, I would keep the e-collar on at all times. The prong collar only when you're working him. And then it's just a fact of life. Like you wake up in the morning, we put our tools on. Just like we put like our clothes on, dogs put their tools on. Rotate it throughout the day, and then it comes off at night. Also, I don't know if you're doing this, so no judgments here, but I know people do it. So here's my e-collar. They become wise to like you picking it up, right?
Yeah, they do.
I'm gonna always, when I'm working with my dog, I have it in my hand. And your puppy's fairly young, so probably still learning. I'm gonna have this in my hand at all times, whether it's in my pocket or just dangling there.
Mhm.
And so that way the dog doesn't become wise to listening to this. They listen to you. So there's not a trigger. So the dog doesn't realize, oh, every time she grabs the e-collar, a punish comes or whatever. What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I like what you said because dogs are opportunists, so they know like if this isn't on, I don't have to listen, so I'm gonna push the boundaries when I can. So I completely agree, and especially like so young, like wear it all day, and like you said, to rotate it,
Oh,
because
I do want to just touch that. It's not a failure to have the tool on.
mhm,
So don't feel like my dog's not trained because he doesn't listen with the collar on, because dogs are opportunists. So if they can get away with something, they're gonna for sure try. So it's not a failure to just keep the prong or the e-collar on your dog at all times. That way you can follow through.
mhm,
Because it's like wearing a seatbelt. I would much rather
exactly.
have my seatbelt on but not need to use it than really need it and you can't. There's no follow through.
Right. Yeah, so I mean that all makes sense, and yeah, you mean you said it all. You touched on all the points.
But yeah, if you have another, I see you said gotcha makes sense. I'm glad it makes sense for you. But if you have any other questions regarding that, you can for sure like put it in there and we'll answer that for you.
But super awesome for you for working so much with your 7-month-old puppy, gotta say, and keep up the great work with him. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
All
We
right.
also
I'll ask you the next one if you want to put
okay,
it up.
yeah. So we
So
have
do you
another.
recommend the prong collar for a deaf puppy?
So this is actually great, and it kind of leads us into something that Susan and I wanted to talk about today, anyways, about prong collars and who we use them for. So I will use a prong collar on all of my dogs. The reason being is it's the way I train. So I train pressure on, pressure off, and I found that the prong collar is the best tool to train that with. So you can most certainly use a prong collar on your deaf puppy. Um, and then you can, instead of the verbal commands that we give, you can pair it with hand signals. So just thinking out loud here, Susan, I guess what you would do is if you check out, I know Susan's got a great how to series online, and I'm working on getting up a series, or whoever you may be following. Once it gets to the point where you're naming it and you're adding in the command, I assume at that same point you would just do hand signal.
Mhm.
So you would do like luring and leash pressure with your puppy on the prong collar. And then once you can get that command, so set for example, once you're able to lure him into a set and leash pressure them into a set, then you can add like a hand signal.
Which would probably just be that where you withhold the food.
Mhm.
If you just give him like that hand signal, I mean, you can make whatever you want, but
Mhm.
you'll just be able to do this and he'll sit for you.
Right. So
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the kennel I used to work at, they train with hand signals for all of their dogs. Now I
Oh,
don't. I've moved away from hand signals now because I found that some dogs become too reliant on it and like are only looking at your body cues and not really listening to you. But for your deaf puppy, that'll be great. So a lot of the hand signals were actually just exaggerated body cues. So like you said, like with the food, you would lure up. Our hand signal for sit was an open hand and just lift it up. And then the same for down. Your hand goes down.
So you
The
just,
command is down. And then like place, like pretty much whatever you're doing with the leash when you're training that command will kind of become your hand signal. The easiest way to transition to a hand signal anyways.
Yeah, but that was a good question because it was already like something one wanted to go over.
Right.
Just prong collars are good for any dog, whether it be a really shy dog, a really crazy in your face dog, an aggressive dog, anything. Like I'll use them for anybody. They're just so wonderful.
Right. And again, I just think that's like the magic of the tool because it's not because the reason we want to talk about this is I was asked the other day, you know, talking to a client about training for their puppy, and they're like, well, do you want to meet her first and see if she really needs a prong collar? I don't view the prong collar as like, oh my gosh, your dog is so horrible, they need a prong collar. It really is just a communication device, and it's an amazing device for that, as well as the e-collar.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
I do have another question for you.
Okay.
Are anxiety medications something you recommend, or are there any holistic options that you recommend for anxious dogs?
So I am going to answer something I say often. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. No. So I'm not a vet, so I do withhold from giving any advice about medication or anything like that because that is not my field of expertise. Poor Susan knows that because I'm asking her all the time that tech questions. However, that's not usually my go-to. So shocker, as a trainer, my go-to is usually training. So by training your dog and giving them boundaries and structure, they're going to likely become much more confident through the training and have less anxiety through different ways you can incorporate training into your everyday life. Now, that being said, I'm not saying I have anything against those medications. I would try training first and then maybe talk to your vet about the anxiety medicine or other options.
Like, so if I have a dog that comes to me for a board and train, I do want them weaned off their anxiety medications prior to being boarded with me because I want to know, are those medications deemed like necessary really? I want to see the dog for its true self, train that dog up, and then say, oh, this dog doesn't seem to need meds, or that might help take the edge off. So I always like them to be weaned off because I just want to know, I want to know the dog.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I've seen training allow dogs to be weaned off of these anxiety medications. It's actually funny. SJ, a dog I trained back beginning of last year, I think. I don't know that I knew she was on anxiety medication when I was training her. I just guess that just didn't come up in conversation, or I like forgot about it. And then it came up in conversation with her mom. She's like, yeah, now since training, she's not on anxiety medication anymore. And
Wow.
like she would be on anxiety medication and still destroy the house for her like awful separation anxiety. And just the shrapnel effect or like the ripple effect that training can do for a dog is just, it's why I love it so much.
So I was and still am a certified vet tech. And when I was working in my day practice, my vet didn't overly recommend anxiety meds, but I know that clients coming into our practice, their vets had recommended anxiety medications. And I can't tell you one dog that they said, yep, it worked. It helped. They're still like, can we change the dose? Or what else do you recommend? Or I can't tell you anybody that I know it's helped.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And it's funny because I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, I've known from my time in the kennel, dogs that would be on it, and it's like, I mean, I know they're in a kennel, so you kind of assume that's why, but it's like if you're being medicated for anxiety and you're still like this bad.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I think unfortunately people just don't know what to do, you know. They don't really know training's an option yet, even though like, you know, we're a big social media thing, like you can get a lot of knowledge through social media. I just don't think a lot of people really know about training to
And, you
fix.
know, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that brings up a great point because, you know, not only like the difference between obedience training and trick training. So somebody might think, well, my dog's got anxiety, so it's how is teaching them how to sit going to help their anxiety? But there's such a difference between trick training and obedience training. And while I love trick training and think it's super great, you know, for your dog to sit only when you're in the house and it's quiet and you have a treat and then they break whenever they want to break, like that's more of like a trick to me. But for me to be able to be out in like the store with a dog and have them sit and not have to like prompt them with a treat or anything and have them hold that sit until I release them, like there's a difference between the obedience and like cute little trick
Yeah, I
training
think
things, you know?
trick training is more flashy and shows some skill that the dog has, whereas obedience training is like a mindset thing.
Mm-hmm.
You put like a calming mindset into it too. Like they have to show a lot of control. You know, the dogs just have to lay there while everything else goes by. You know, it's just a lot of self-control on the dog's part. But I love it.
Yeah, so I just think that the understanding that obedience can have calming effects on dogs is like not widely known. So that's why I love that we do all this stuff on social media because like I want to like share this information with people, you know?
So I just had a thought, so I'm just gonna make you do it. Tell me about the place command and why you like it.
Why it's my favorite command in the whole entire world?
Yes, because then I'm gonna do the out command.
Okay, that's my second favorite.
I know.
So I always start off talking about why place is my favorite for this one reason. So if you've ever had a day where your dog is just like absolutely crazy and they're running around the house like a psychopath, and you're like, I just wish this dog had an off switch, that's what place is. So that's the first reason that I love place. So what it is, which because I didn't say, means to go into this defined object. So I use an elevated place cot, and then that can be transitioned to like a dog bed and other things. But go into this object, lie down, and be calm. I train it with an implied down because I want to get that calm mindset from a dog. Sorry, I got distracted trying to read a comment.
I did too.
Okay, I'll talk on that for a second. Let me just finish place. So it means to go on this object and lie down. So not only is it gonna take your dog from like crazy level, but it's gonna like it's like trained calmness. Mm-hmm. So not only like crazy super excited, but also like really super nervousy and scared. They're still amped up, but in a different way. So putting them on place allows them to calm down, and then it will help you like desensitize them to lots of stuff. But I could talk about place forever. So if we want to check on
well, I just want to hit on that place is like a meditation spot for dogs. Like it really is. So I was throwing a party, and by party I mean like 4 people at my house. I was throwing a party and I have 2 dogs and I put them both on place. And people came in the door, dogs, of course. So place means to lay on this object. So they can't get up, they can't stand, nothing, no barking. So people came in and the one girl, she said, "Wow, Susan, did you take your dogs for like a really long walk before we came over?" And I said, "No, they're just in place." I said, "I haven't done anything with them yet today." Like, place is just so great. Oh, hi, Deborah. Just saw your comment. No worries. Late to the party is still here. So.
And then I'm not sure what Erin is saying.
So she's recommending Megan check me out because I used to work with Erin at the emergency clinic. So Erin, if you're still on here, awesome. Hey, if you're not, that's cool. Thanks for the shout out.
But yeah, sorry, I know I just got so distracted by the comments. I'm not used to doing our talks and having like getting to read things at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. So hey.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. If you're still on here, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to just comment them, and then we'll get to them as we like take a breather in between what we're talking about. We do have some questions already listed that we're reading off, but we'll stop to answer your comments.
And speaking of, we've got another comment that I will display now. It says, when you place them and they keep getting up, how do you get them to stay? Just keep repeating it over and over until they get it? Do you say place, then send signal on e-collar? How does that work?
Okay, so Tracy, you're the one with the 7-month-old lab puppy, right? So it depends where you are in the transition. So honestly, I transfer dogs over to the e-collar once I can say place and the dog walks onto the bed. So if I can say place and your dog walks onto their bed, I'm going to now layer over the e-collar. I do have a video on that, how to properly layer it over, but I'm going to try to synopsis it really quick for you. I'm going to have a prong and leash on them just to help with direction. And we use e-collar technologies, e-collars, because they range from 0 to 100. So I can fine tune the number that your dog responds to. So their working level, which is the lowest level they can feel. So on an e-collar, on a mini educator, I'm gonna start at a 1. Well, first, okay, so I'm gonna start out by what's that called, Rachel?
Finding the working level? Or...
So I'm gonna prime your dog. So if I had your lab, knows place already, I'm going to do place, like ask your dog to place, and then say break a handful of times, like 5 to 10 times. Once your dog picks up on it.
Oh, priming them, sorry.
Yeah. So once your dog picks up on, hey, we're working on place right now. Now I'm going to take that word away. So I'm not going to say place, but I'm going to hold constant pressure with the e-collar. So I'm going to start at a level 1. Most dogs won't feel a level 1, but I'm going to hold down a level 1. Your dog will probably stand there, and then I'll guide them on with the leash until they lay down on their bed, and then pressure's off. I'll reward them and say break. I'm going to keep doing that, dialing up one number on the remote each time until you notice your dog feels the stim. So what does that look like? Your dog is going to like wink or like do like a little head tilt, a little ear flick. I don't want it to be so severe of a reaction that your dog kind of jumps out of their skin. I want it to be very subtle. And you'll know. So once you get to that number where your dog's kind of like thinking about it, they're like, what is this feeling?
Usually between like 4 and 7, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, it should be below a 10. If it's not, you'll want to consult a trainer. So it should be below 10. Then at that working level, you're going to hold constant pressure, like lead them onto the place bed, pressure's off when they're laying down, reward, break, and then you're going to keep doing it at that level until when you put the pressure on, the dog's like, oh, and goes to lay on the place bed. Now that you have that's their working level. Every time you put pressure on, the dog goes to the bed. Now we're going to put the word back in and take the pressure away. So what that means is I'm going to say place. If he goes and lays down on that dog bed, good. And then here's your food reward. If he goes to get up, I'm going to say no, pressure on, and lead him back to the bed and make him lay down. So that would be the NCS stage of e-collar training. So I tried to do a quick synopsis. It wasn't all that quick. But if you want to check out my YouTube video on e-collar place, I do have that up if you have any other questions about it. I know it's not a lot in a short amount of time for you, but.
Sorry, I was being rude. I just wanted to share an Instagram story really quick.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Do you have anything to add to that e-collar?
Yeah, so cool. I was hearing myself echoing back, but it's kind of going away now. So if I'm talking kind of slow, it's because I'm hearing myself in my ear. So to add on to that, yes, definitely Tracy, check out her how-to stuff. She just commented and said she's going to check it out because Susan's how-to videos are awesome. I'll be posting some soon. But yeah, so another thing I wanted to add is talking about the 3Ds. So in training, there's distance, duration, and distraction. So if your dog is going to keep on getting up while in place, then I think maybe you've added too much distance, durations, and distractions. So you want to like start really slow. There is lots of little steps in training. So like you said, you're going to do all that stuff with the layering and the e-collar, and then you want to slowly add the distance, durations, and distractions, if that makes sense. But I think if you find yourself having to repeat it over and over, it's okay for us to like take a step back, and then so take a step back and make sure your dog's got a good understanding of what place is before we try to ask him to stay on there for too long.
Nice.
Cool. So we're gonna got a few to catch up on. So the next one we have is from Deborah. Do you want to read this one or you want me to?
Oh, yeah, I can read it. How do you address overexcitement with toys when playing? Hannah has a very high prey drive, and it seems the more I play, the more overstimulated she gets.
So that's a good question. So I think you got to think. So I think maybe the first thing that would be helpful for Hannah is maybe teaching her a really solid out command. Because I think I've seen Deborah comment on some of Susan's posts before. She's the young German Shepherd, right? Right? She's young.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I want to make sure we're talking to her.
Yes.
I mean, she is a young dog and she's got that hydrate. She's got that.
Yeah, she's a German.
Right. Perfect. So you're gonna want to play with her and have fun with her, and so I'm not gonna say just not play, but we want play to be pleasant for both of you and it not get like too crazy. So I would suggest teaching her the out command. So you can play with her, and when it gets just too rowdy, outing her away. And then another idea might just be experimenting with different types of play. So maybe right now, if like tug is too much for her, or you want to pause on playing tug until she's learned that out command, maybe try fetch, or maybe a different style of play. But I think the out command will help when she gets like too outy, too rowdy. You can out her. What do you think, Susan? Are you there, Susan? I think Susan and I are lagging a bit. I think she's a little bit behind me. Susan. Okay, I'm going to message her. Bear with us because, again, this is our first thing. I think the voice is...
Yeah, sorry, I was just having a little bit of technical difficulties.
So, while Susan loads, yeah, that would be my go-to.
I think it. Oh,
are you back?
I think I can. I think we're actually back. Yeah, that I struggled there for a little bit.
Oh no. Okay. Well, Susan's gone. I'm gonna just stay on here real quick and send her another invite. So hopefully she can join us back. Bear with me and thank y'all for your patience. Technical difficulties are always a lot of fun. Let's see. She's back. There we go. I missed you. I was lonely and I did not like going solo.
I know. I was like, oh my God, Rachel's probably over there like.
I know. I'm like, Susan, I don't know what to say. Okay, so Susan, did you hear what I was telling her about the out command?
I heard you talk about the out command. I really do love it. It depends. So you said overexcitement. I guess I want to know. Okay, it's what you do. What do you mean overexcitement? Like, is she nipping at you, or is she just like a crazy fool? Like, is that what you're seeing, Deborah?
That makes sense.
Because if she's like starting to get crazy and just like nonsense behavior, I might out her off the toy. Or if she's just like ping ponging back and forth, I might actually say no and correct with compressed air, a pet condenser, because it's like there's good play and then there's crazy stupid play. Let's not stupidly play. Let's play nice. Like there's a fine line. So if she's just being like a brat, I'd probably say no and compress air her.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I would compressed air her to be like no compressed air. Or if you have the e-collar, if you have the out command trained with the e-collar, then I would say no and then correct with the e-collar. So if that's what I would do if she is e-collar trained without, and if she's not, then I would layer that on top. And because you have the e-collar, she knows out. So that would probably be what I would do, is just to reinforce it with the e-collar.
And then, yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Depending on what type of excitement she's doing. So if she's like nipping at you, I would definitely want to like focus on that nip and correct that, because you can bite on the toy, not on me. So that's great. And definitely, Deborah, keep us updated on that because I know you watch Susan's stuff a lot, and I love seeing your comments. So keep us updated on Miss Hannah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Tracy says, definitely will check it out. I think I clicked the wrong one. Where am I at? I lost
No,
my
you're good.
spot.
The next one after that.
There you go. Deborah agrees that your training videos are awesome.
Ah, thank you.
And then I think I skipped this.
There's one right
here we go.
before, yeah.
So Deborah says, have you noticed if a female tends to regress when entering their first heat cycle? This will be new.
I'm going to say no, because I don't have experience with that besides my own personal dog.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know a lot of people that have intact females. Sadie, of course, I spayed her after her first heat cycle, but I wasn't really delving into the train at that point. So I didn't notice her going back. But what I can tell you is that they told me it would calm her down when she was spayed, and it sure did not.
What? Saying your dog isn't a substitution for training?
It didn't work. That's a conversation for a different day about
oh my gosh, don't get me started.
But no, I have not noticed that. I would just say treat her like normal. Like there's a healthy amount of babying her and holding her accountable for commands. And I'm going to bring up Rachel because her dog just had surgery. And same thing, like you want to kind of coddle them a little bit, but also don't let them get away with things. So there's a healthy balance. So, you might feel bad because she might be more lethargic than normal for that period of time. Sorry. So you could just have her like doing a place command while that's going on, like more than making her be active or whatever feels right to you.
Yeah, so Reese, again, apologizing for me talking slow because I can hear myself again. So Reese, when she was going through training with me, she was a 101, so I wasn't hands-on working her as much. But she did go through a heat cycle while she was in training with me. And I think her dad just said she just wanted to sleep more throughout the day, so she wasn't as active. She was just like wanted to nap more.
Makes sense.
But other than that, I don't think he commented on her training wise going back. So like that was pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, I don't have any personal experience with it. All of my dogs have either been male, and Gaia was already spayed before I got her.
Yeah. But since we talked about it, do you want to talk about it, or do you have questions you want to ask?
Talk about my spaying and neutering issue.
Yes.
Or yeah. So here's the deal. I'll just say what I'm gonna say real quick. I am all for people spaying and neutering their dogs. Like, I love it. Spay and neuter your dogs because there's like nothing that irks me more than accidental litters and backyard breeders. Makes my blood boil. So yes, spay and neuter your dogs. That being said, spaying and neutering your dog is not going to make them calmer. It's not going to make them listen more. It's not going to make them stop jumping. Susan, you'll have to tell that story.
Oh wait, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I've seen a lot of really crazy dogs who have been spayed and neutered. I just like, I don't know, I'm almost like wondering, like, is it a marketing scheme to convince owners to spay and neuter their dogs? Because again, like, I'm all for it, but I'm not for lying to owners to get them to do things like raw food. That's another conversation. So no, Susan, tell the story if you want about the jumping one.
Wait, you have to refresh my memory. I don't remember which one.
Okay, I'll just remind you. So I'll just tell your story for you.
Yeah, you just tell it.
So you were telling me there's a vet near where you live, maybe, and I think they even offer training as well. But I won't comment on that part of the story. Basically, somebody brought their dog in and said, "Hey, Fido or Sally, or no, sorry, I have a dog named Sally. My female dog is jumping on me a lot. How can I fix it?" And then they said to spay her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you told me that in a Q&A, and I actually have a trainer's clip of it that I haven't posted yet, but I have saved. And I like lost it. I was like, "Are you kidding me, Susan?" I said the only way.
I remember now.
Okay. I said the only way that spaying your dog is going to help them not jump is A, when they're on the operating table, and B, maybe they're really drugged up when you bring them home. Mm-hmm. But after that, you're still going to have a jumping dog. It's like, I'm all for it. Literally, I'll say it 20 times. Spay and neuter your dogs. It's not a fix for behavioral issues.
Yeah.
Like, I can like cut off my left arm and maybe like still flunk out of school because I don't understand something, or I could still be like a jerk to people, but I just am a jerk with one arm. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
no relation. Yeah,
Right.
hormones, whatever, blah. I don't care.
Yeah, it was one of my clients that's the vet that she works at. I think that's what they recommended was, any dog that misbehaves, if they're not spayed or neutered, they recommend spaying or neutering them. Which, yeah, that's a different story. But I actually worked with 2 separately intact males. They were my first intact males that I worked with personally, and I was wondering how it would go. So the first was a pit bull. He was just out of control, jumping all over everybody. The owner said, like, we've used the e-collar, we've used the prong collar, nothing stops him. Trained up just fine. Doesn't jump anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was a Cane Corso, who again was overly excitable when people would come over. Trained up just fine. Intact males. Now, the only thing I will say about an intact male, I think just one of them, they did go through 100 to smell female dog urine. An intact. I'm sorry, a spayed female.
Yeah.
So it's not even like she was intact. She was spayed. But yeah, he blew through 100 on the e-collar because he's like, So that's the only thing I'll note about an unneutered male is like if they get a female scent, good luck.
That's fair.
But
yeah, but seriously, like spay and neuter your dogs because they have no reason to be intact. But it's not gonna and train them. Yeah. So we have another question from Miss Tracy. She says, speaking of jumping, when company comes, how do you keep dog from jumping? Put prong collar on and give them a tug? Can you train a dog not to jump without the collar? Great question.
So first, I'm going to answer it in succession. Yes, I would have a prong collar on the dog, and I would actually set them up before company comes over because it's easier. So when I had a jumping dog, when I had Hank, actually, I'm sorry, I never had to do this. He just didn't jump. You were here for that. He didn't jump.
Oh yeah, we tried to set him up, and he was like, nah.
So yeah, you'll have a leash and a prong collar on the dog. Start out soft. So don't just. I don't start out like all crazy. But just walk them up to somebody. If the dog jumps, I'm gonna say no, leash pop, harsh leash pop down. If you don't have a prong, you can do it without the prong, but you would still have to have a tool. So I use compressed air. So the person that they're jumping on, so when I go to clients' houses and their dog jumps all over me, I just say no and compressed air to like the side, like this general area. That's usually enough to like, I'll startle the dog that they're like, I'm not going to jump on you again. So you couldn't do it without the prong collar, but the prong collar is just so effective, I think.
Right.
But what about you?
Yeah, so when setting a dog up for jumping, the prong collar is usually my go-to. So do everything like you said, start chill, walk the dog up to somebody, see what they offer, and all that good stuff. And then as far as setting the dog up without the collar, so compressed air is great. Oh yeah, so the one thing I did want to comment on, because I had it written down, because I'm like, yeah, you said everything else that I said. When training jumping, I always like to tell people to be super black and white. So for me, like, so with all training, you want to be black and white, but jumping specifically is one that I've noticed like is a struggle because like, so mom comes in the door and Fido jumps up and mom's petting on the puppy and loving on him and everything's great. And then dad comes through the door and Fido jumps up and he's like, what the heck, man? Corrects the dog for jumping. Now, eventually, yes, the dog will learn I can jump on mom, but I can't jump on dad. But then when you have company over, the dog's like, what's the rules here, right? So they're going to push it. They're going to jump up on every person to see, is this someone I'm allowed to jump up on? And then they're going to have to be corrected. Whereas if the rule, like for everybody, is, hey, we don't jump on people, then the dog's doesn't have to question it. The dog doesn't have to say, well, can I jump on this person? Let me try it and see, and then get a correction for it, or, whatever. So I always just say to help with jumping, make it super clear. You don't get to jump on me. You don't get to jump on anybody. And then down the line, if you really want your dog to jump up and hug you, you can train like up or something. But at that point, I'm like, eh. But make it clear so the dog doesn't have to like question it every single time, because they will push that boundary every time to see if they can.
Right. Yeah. Consistency, black and white. It's a good point.
Anything else on that one before I move on?
No.
Right, so
Cougar. I said no, and she's like, "What?"
She's like, "Sorry." So Miss Deborah says, "Does the prong collar go on front of the e-collar or behind it, or does it matter?"
So I was trying to get my dog up here in the picture, but I don't know if she'll do it. Little up.
Speaking of,
there you go. Okay, so the e-collar sits down low here. The prong collar goes right behind the ears. So e-collar down low, prong up high.
Yep. And the way to remember that is there is an expression for e-collars. I mean, I lied. The way to remember that, if you remember the proper tool when like you're saying the expression. So for the prong collar, they say high and tight. So the prong collar should be high and tight. It should be a nice snug fit. You can talk about prong collar fit, blah, but high and tight. And then I always joke, and then to add in an extra collar, if your dog wears a flat collar with their name on it, that'll go very low. So it's like an e-collar sandwich. It's an e-collar, and then the top piece of bread is the prong collar, and the bottom piece of bread is the flat collar.
Nice.
But yeah. And let's see. So Tracy says that makes sense for our jumping. And then Deborah says, "Thank you for the prong collar." Prong collar 1, 2. So, Miss Susan, I got this question earlier this week from somebody. I'm not sure if they're joining us live now, but hopefully they'll be able to catch the replay for this. So they asked me, how can they stop it? So they have a dog who will run up to their daughter, who is just over a year old, and lick her. They said she does this when she's nervous and when she's excited.
Okay.
So the first question, I got a couple from her. The first one is, how can we stop that?
So stopping it, I would probably utilize out. You could just say no and punish, but I like to be clear. I don't know. So the dog might not know if they're being punished for licking the kid, going up to the kid, blah, blah. So I'd probably just teach a solid out command and then just out you from that. Now, out the dog from the kid. But like, let's say the dog just comes up to you and like starts licking your arm and literally is just standing there licking your arm. I will say no and correct because they're like constantly doing something. But like the dog runs up, licks the kid and runs off, then I would out them. Like as the
and I know
like,
it was also a thing that he's like knocking the baby, or she's knocking the baby over.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably out.
Yeah. So out is going to be super useful for everything, which we will jump back in so you can talk about your out and why it's your favorite command and all its good stuff. But yeah, so out's going to be super helpful. And yeah, I would out in this situation rather than correcting, because I just want you to get away from baby's face. So personally, like, I know this person, I know she's a great mom and great with her kid and all that good stuff. I just don't personally love dog faces near baby faces because teeth. So I would just out her away from the baby to just be safe. And then that's going to teach your dog to respect your baby's bubble. I'm not saying any names because I don't know if she like doesn't want me putting her business out there. But yeah, so outing her away is going to teach her to respect baby's bubble, and then it's going to be more mindful of not like running into her, knocking her over, and all that good stuff.
Nice. What's the second part?
The second part is, sorry, I'm making sure, guys, she's not wearing her cone right now, so I just want to make sure she doesn't scratch her button ear. So the second part of this question is, I'll give you these in both parts. So it's, what's the best commands for a beginner to for a beginner to start training her dog? And then she asks if we have any advice for her. So she hasn't really gotten to do any training with her pup before. And she,
do you know how old the puppy is?
Gosh, maybe 4. I mean, it's an adult dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, best advice is just start training the commands. Since you haven't trained yet, you have the whole world at your, fingertips. So I would start with sit because I can help morph it into other things. So I'm going to start with your dog in a sit. So start by teaching sit. Once you can lure a sit, your dog's sitting here. Now I'm going to use a food lure. So if this is their mouth, I'm going to use a food lure and trail it down. I'd say about 80% of dogs will like follow it. So the dog's going to follow that lure and lay down. Now that I can lure you into a down, I can teach place because place has an auto down. I can teach lay because I teach lay. Sit allows me to have you do an auto sit at thresholds, so I can make you sit at the door. I can teach heel, which has an auto sit in it. So sit is really like start there and then just morph it into all the other commands.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So the first part of the question is, what are the best commands for a beginner trainer? So exactly. When I do my training sessions, sometimes introduce 3 in a day, depending on the dog. And my go-tos are always sit, down, and place. Those are my go-tos. So it's just like you said, starting with sit because you can morph it, starting with down because you can morph it, and then going from there. As far as advice for you being like a beginner owner trainer, being a beginner trainer because you are training your dog, so you are a dog trainer, is be consistent and be patient. So Susan always says and has some great posts about it, but dogs aren't robots.
What do I say?
Dogs aren't robots, so they're gonna have days where yesterday your dog was sitting every time you said it and she was perfect, and then today you take her outside to work and you have her sit and she doesn't sit, and you're like, what in the world? So it is okay to remember the dogs have off days and you have to keep being consistent. So I know, like me, I've been training dogs for like 4.5 years, I think. And I'll have days where I call Susan after a session, like almost in tears, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know why this dog doesn't know what she's doing. I've been working with her. She's been doing great. And today she knew nothing. And then, I'm pretty sure quotes from a conversation we've had. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. And then I'll go back the next session and it's like best session that dog's ever had because they maybe just needed that day to process. Right. Just like us, like we need our downtime, we need our time to process. Dogs are the same way. So just stay consistent, be patient. Oh, and don't rush the steps. So there are steps to training for a reason. Don't rush them. Like we want to take time on each step because once we get to that final product, it's going to be worth it. But if we try to rush to that, you're going to end up with a dog who's confused, who doesn't know what you're asking them, and it's going to be a little messy. So you want to make sure we're really fair and that we give them plenty of time to understand what it is we're training them. But that would be my advice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have other questions?
Let's see. No, because we touched on prong collars already. That was my other question was, do you use prongs on all your dogs or do you evaluate them?
Oh, nice.
We already talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
What about you? You got anything else to add?
No, we went through all my questions. So I guess I'll just make one up.
Okay, make one up, Susan. On the spot right now. Let's go.
Right now. Okay.
Okay, hold on. No, I remember. Susan, out. Tell me about out and why you like that command.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I do love out, place and out. I love place, out, recall, late. No, I'm just kidding.
I like them all, but seriously, we do.
Like my least, let's talk about least favorite next. Okay.
Talk about out first, girl. Come on.
Okay, so out means to disengage from or drop what's in your mouth. So
I have a song and it says disengage and walk away. Okay, sorry.
Nice.
It's a song that I sing every time.
Okay. Every time you think
and,
out?
In my head, every time I hear out, I think disengage and walk away.
Nice. Great, now I will too. So it can be used for if your dog's smelling something. So I don't care what it is. It could be like dog poop outside, whatever. You could say out, the dog will turn around and walk away from it. You can use it for people. So like the baby that we mentioned earlier, or like, let's say you have a German Shepherd and your 90-year-old grandma comes over. Let's just out, she doesn't like dogs or whatever. You can just say out and your dog will walk away. If you're in the kitchen and you're like opening the oven and your dog comes over, you could say out, dog walk away. Or if they have a toy, you could say out, so they'll drop the toy. Or anything that's in their mouth. But I just love it. I love it because I was gonna say I can't believe I didn't train it before, but I did train my dog something similar. I would say go on, which just meant like go, get. It's very similar, but I never used to train client dogs out. So that's awesome because I do that now. I can't imagine like without out now. Like
honestly, I'll see like a group of dogs together now and like they don't know out, and I'm like, man, this is like terrifying me. Whereas I used to work in a kennel and I would be in a yard with 80 dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them trained, some of them not trained, but it was like, I ran a very nice yard, just saying. But it's crazy now to think back, like me knowing what I know now. I don't know how I would do in that situation because it's like I know that I can't just say out and dogs will disperse.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy.
Oh, nice. I'll ask you this one. So Tracy wants to know, how do you train out?
So Tracy, very good question since we're talking about how awesome this command is. So let me just shout out Susan one more time. Do you have an out video? You probably do because you're amazing.
I do.
Yes.
I have the beginning stage. I don't have e-collar video up yet, but I have how to teach it with the leash.
Must be nice. Sorry, I'm jealous of Susan because she's got amazing how-to series videos. But they are in the process. Maybe they'll be up by next year. Okay, let me stop. Let me be serious. Okay, so how do you train out? So this is a fun one to train. It helps if you have two people. It really helps if you have two people. If you don't, you can work out a pulley system with a long line where you wrap a leash around something. But say you have two people, you're going to start off with person A standing over here, person B standing over here. Person B will have a leash, a long line attached to the dog's prong collar, and then the dog is going to be hanging out over near person A, right? So dog is over here with person A, depending on the type of the dog. So if the dog is like, I don't know, somewhat interested in this person is what you want, but you don't want him to be like overly interested. So I don't want to be like feeding this dog a steak or anything. So dog's over here, and then you can decide who says out first. I don't think it matters. It just depends on what you go with, right? So maybe person.
I usually have the person that the dog is next to.
That's what I thought.
They say out. Go ahead.
Yeah, so person A will say out, and then kind of at the same time, they're gonna spatial pressure the dog, so they might walk into him a little bit, and person B will apply some leash pressure. And then because we train pressure on, pressure off, the dog's gonna feel the pressure being pulled away from them. Dog's gonna yield to it, and then this person will let go of pressure and reward the dog. So dog feels leash pressure. Once it moves away from person, pressure turns off, good, and you get a treat. And then you say break, you allow the dog to walk back over to this person, and then you do that a couple times. You want to do that until person A can say it, and the dog starts to move away on their own. And then you can up it. So the next step is like maybe we start petting the dog because now you're more interesting, and then you out them. And then you start letting the dog eat treats from you, and then you tell them out. After a while of that, you can mix it up. So then maybe this person, person B, will out the dog from person A. But it's super important to make sure you have a long line on so you can help them with that along the way. And then you would go through e-collar training with that, but that's a whole thing to dive into. Yeah. But that's how you would start.
Yeah.
What do you think? Awesome. Anything to add?
No, not really. It's hard to explain it, like
right.
Unless you have a little dog figure and little people figure.
Oh my god, I just need to get little dolls.
Yeah, little dolls. Like there's a leash and a long line and everything.
Oh my god.
But yeah, if you check out the video, it'll walk you through, and it actually it shows you step by step what you're doing. The out command with the e-collar is on my list of videos to make, so I have to do that one as well as heel. But Deborah does have another question.
All right. So Deborah says, so one of the bad habits Hannah has is after she eats or drinks, she'll walk over to me and put her mouth on me and start sniffing me, resulting in slobber or food on me. Do I use out for this or no? What do you think?
After she eats her drink, she'll walk over to me and put her mouth on me. Okay, so do you mean?
Oh, like resting?
Yeah.
Or...
Do you mean like mouth on me or mouth on me? So if she just puts your mouth, like her mouth, and like sets it on your hand, yeah, for sure, I would be saying out.
Mm-hmm.
But if she puts her mouth around you, I would say no. Incorrect.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree.
How would you do?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like if you're just coming over to me, it's because like maybe you're being needy or asking for attention or whatever, and like that's great, but I'm not your napkin, so like meh, go on.
Yeah.
But if she's putting your mouth on you, anytime a dog is putting their mouth on you and you're not initiating play with that and you're not asking for that, which there are like debates about if you should do that, not the point here. Anytime this happens, I'm gonna say no and correct because I want it to be very clear that this not acceptable.
Yeah.
But gosh, do I know that feeling. I was telling Susan one time Gaia did that and I wasn't thinking. So I like invited her over to cuddle with me and it was gross. Let's see. She said so she sets it on me. Poor use of words. She doesn't bite.
Oh, yeah,
She
that's
uses a
okay.
napkin.
Yeah, so I would just, yep, I would definitely say out before she gets to you. So if this is your
Right,
arm,
like, go ahead and
this is dog, I'd be like out. So she goes like and turns away.
Right.
Get her before she makes contact.
Mm-hmm. We need to train dogs how to like wipe their mouths.
You can.
I know.
You for sure
Gaia
can.
naturally just rubs her face on my
Like,
carpet.
or just
like,
you put the napkin on the floor, and then the dog like
wipe your face.
rubs its face.
I'm sure Gaia will do that. I'm sure all I'd have to do is put a napkin on the ground and she'd go rub her face on it. That's her favorite thing. She's like a cat. Oh gosh. Least favorite commands? You wanna go?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so my least favorite command is sit. I know.
What, Susan?
I know. I hate. Okay, don't say hate. That's pretty strong.
It's not your favorite.
It's not my favorite. I train your dog sit. I will. I'll train your dog sit. But I can probably count on my hand how many times I use sit while I have a dog for a board and train. Because I'll teach it to make sure they can do it, and people want their dog to be able to sit. But I do implied sits. So I want them to sit just automatically, not because I say sit. So that's what I mean. I do utilize that behavior, but I just don't put the word to it. So at thresholds, I do threshold banners, threshold drills. So I'll stand at the door and wait for the dog, and I'll stare at them. So I'll just stare. Mm-hmm. The dog sits. I open the door. They shouldn't get out, like they shouldn't move from their sit. And I'll say break, and then they can go outside. Same thing with the kennel. They have to sit before they go in the kennel. Same thing with the car. They have to sit before they go in the car. And then heeling is walk slightly behind my left leg, sit when I come to a stop. Those are all implied. I never say sit. Mm-hmm. So that's why sit's my least favorite command, because I never use it. And so what happens is I'll teach the dog sit, never ever use it. And then the last 2 days of their board and train, I get a wild hair up my butt, and I'm like, sit. And the dog's like, I'm gonna lay down, because that's what we always do, is lay down when you say a word to me. And I'm like, darn. But like owners just like their dog to be able to sit, because that's like the basic command. Mm-hmm. But I just don't use the word. Meh.
Right. I think it's a great point.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What were you saying?
I was just going to ask what your least favorite one was.
Oh, well, I was just going to piggyback on your comments on sit for a second, because, as trainers are always growing and evolving and learning and changing our opinions and because we're growing. So at the kennel I used to work at, I would always say look, I would used to say stay. Now all of my commands are an implied stay, because if I'm asking you to do something, do it until I release you. So I used to tell my owners, if I ask Fido to sit and after a couple minutes, Fido's like, I'm going to just lay down, I'm fine with that, because you're really hunkering into your stay, because it would be sit, stay. And then I heard other trainers and it was all like, meh, 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 meh. Don't do that. That's awful. The dog just, sorry. But they'd be like, don't do that. That's awful. You just let that dog break their sit. And while I understand that, I don't often ask for long periods of sits. The only time I'm like, meh, maybe is if you're doing elevated sits, which I rarely do with dogs. But yeah, I get you with sit. I think my least favorite to train, and then we'll hop on over to that question. I think my least favorite to train is probably heel. Only because okay, so one time Susan was really mean to me and made fun of me because I said,
Never.
but I think about it all the time.
Never
Though.
mean.
Okay, no, it was really helpful. I know we're at an hour, so we'll wrap it up here in a second, but like, we're fine. We can do what we want, Susan, because we got our own business. Okay.
We can do what we want.
So one time I was telling Susan, I was like, how do I know if this dog actually knows heel and is healing, or are they just walking next to me? So I think with heel for me, it's more of a like, are you, I don't know. It's like if I tell a dog place, I know they know place because they get on their place bed and they lay down and they stay there. But with heel, it's like I'll watch before and after videos of my client dogs and I'm like, okay, you definitely know heel because you used to pull on the leash and now you're just walking next to me. Why I do have that time where I'm like, do you actually know heel? And then I have incorporated back in luring for heel. So like I will lure a dog in a heel to teach them the position I want to be. But then other than that, it's just pressure. So whether that be spatial pressure or like 180s, which is kind of like the opposite of spatial pressure, or prong collar pressure or e-collar pressure. It's just like it's like hot and cold. Like you get pressure if you're in the wrong spot, and it's just weird for me. It's hardest to train, but I love it. It's the hardest to train, but I couldn't stand walking a dog that doesn't know heel. So it's like it's very rewarding, like all of the training is. So
Yeah.
that's most difficult. But but Susan, what did you tell me? Oh yeah. Wait, what did you tell me? Because I was like, does this dog know heel or are they just
I was like,
thing.
yeah, I was like, do you know place or are you just laying on this bed? Like they know it.
You're right. But we'll stop making fun of me now and hop over to Tracy's next question. My 7-month-old on prong walking just mastered to sit when I stop walking without saying it. I use the word okay, which is I think your break. That's awesome. Again, I said this already. Sorry, Susan, I cut you off. Awesome for you, Tracy, for all the work you're doing with this pup. Like I love when owners are like training their dogs and like doing all this from a young age. It's super exciting for me to see.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And yeah, I used to use the word okay. So my words were yes and okay, which now are good and break. So yeah, that's just your break command. So that's awesome. Love it. And like Rachel said, awesome for you training your dog so young. It's gonna be really beneficial.
Right. I love it. And to add on to what you said, like words are just words. So the funny thing is I'd always tell my clients, I also say good and break. I used to say, and then my no, I used to say instead of no. But blah, 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 words are just words. So I can train my dog that catch up means sit. Frisbee means lie down, like whatever. Like you can train them anything, right? Any word means any behavior. So using okay as a break is cool. It's just as long as you're consistent with it,
Yes.
And then they'll be fine.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're at our hour. We hit our hour.
Yeah. It's funny because when we first started, I was like, I don't know, man, I don't want to do this. I'm having second thoughts, and now I'm like, it's an hour already.
I know. We'll just stay on here and like, just talk about whatever.
Right. So thanks for everyone who joined us, who popped in and popped out. A special thank you to Deborah and Tracy for watching the whole time and asking all your questions. So thank y'all. I loved reading these and answering these.
Yes, it was awesome. Thank you guys.
I loved it. So hopefully we will. Tracy says thank you so much for the advice, and Deborah says this has been so helpful. I could listen all night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Don't tell us that, Deborah, because we could talk all night.
We could, because if we're not like doing a podcast or I don't know what this is, a live or a Q&A, we're talking dog training all day. Like that's what we do all day.
I would just be on the phone with her doing exactly this.
Sending 1,000 voice memos back and forth.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Then this is what we love. We're so fortunate to be able to do what we love and share that with the world. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We may be going live again next week. Who knows? But we'll definitely keep y'all posted. I think the goal is to do these lives weekly. Right? Yeah. So Susan and I would
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, I'm like, right, Susan? So we'll definitely keep everyone posted on that. And I'll just wrap it up how I always do. Thanks again for watching. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Pack Leader Dog and Rachel Kohler Dog Training.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.